Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Matenadaran. The Armenian word Matenadaran means the depository of old manuscripts. So this is exactly the venue where we need to speak about the future. Because this is where the past legacy and the wisdom of the Armenian nation is stored. So where else, if not here? What else to speak about, if not the stories of the future? Ever since the cognitive revolution, which is so nicely described in the Bible, in terms of the action of Eve biting the apple, humans have been asking themselves two major questions. A, where do we come from? B, where are we heading? So the first question is retrospective. It looks into the past. The second question is prospective. It looks into the future. In order to answer both questions, humans have invented narratives. They have invented stories. Obviously, various myths and various religions are built around the answers to this first question. What humans did was they invented two different sets of narratives in order to answer the second question. The first set of narratives are the science fiction stories. 20 years ago, when I was writing my graduation paper on Fahrenheit 451 by Rad Bradbury, I read the description of a device, of a thimble radio, worn in the ear in order to create music or to transmit music. A month ago, I became the owner of such a thimble radio, of such an earpiece. So the future is here. The future of 50 years ago is here. Of course, we're going to have more futures to come, and people are inventing new narratives of cyborgs, for example. And these cyborgs, perhaps, will be the future or the reality of tomorrow. The second set of stories or narratives invented by humans about the future are the policies, are the visions. Mostly, and currently, people have gone into the futures and foresights direction. They think what they want to have, say, in 20, 30 years' time. And what they do is then backcast. They decide what they want to have 5 years before the future, 10 years before the future they have set. Normally, these futures are very long, and they are very far. For example, the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 by the United Nations. And within this large context of various narratives, explaining us the past, depicting the future, and in this specific venue, it would be weird not to speak about education. Education because we inherit things from the past, and we use the education as a vehicle to take us into the future. I don't want this to be a visual boom in your mind, but I would really ask you to close your eyes for a minute and to think of a bridge. What would you think of? Normally, my visualization of a bridge would be a narrow passageway, quite discreet, based on two banks of a river, over a river water body or a ravine. So if we think about these two banks as the past and the future, and we think about the bridge as the present on which we stand, we need to figure out, once on the bridge, what are we going to do about our education? So what we mostly focus on when we speak about education is policy. So we say, let's improve the policy. Let's improve the program. Let's improve the action plan. Let's improve the documents. And very often, we improve the legislative body or the bylaws around the system. And the key word here is system, by the way. Because very often, when we do policies in different sectors, we forget that we're creating policies for systems. And specifically so about education, where every single cell predetermines the delivery of the others. So if we look into the future, and if we drill the future with our eyes, and we say, okay, let's improve the future, let's improve the policy, this is the education we want to have in the future, we forget about the bridge. We forget about now. Recently, in education theories and in education studies, people have started thinking and speaking about deliverology. Some others have started to speak about implementology. So my point here today is that we need to stop here while we're on the bridge, in the midst of this two-way traffic, and try and understand what we need to do today in order to have a brighter and a better future. And very often, whatever we have to do today does not have to do with policy improvement. But very often, it doesn't have to do with program improvement. Where very often, this is very closely linked and related to the improvement of implementation. Now, speaking about education, it should be noted that whenever we speak about implementation, we speak about the deliverables. We speak about the attained goals. We're so much outcome-driven that we also forget the process. But in order to be able to implement things in the process, we need to have implementers. We need to have people who share our visions. We need to have people who ensure the quality of the implementation of our vision in their everyday work. And this is where we fail. Because this is where we forget that we're dealing with people who have their own pasts and who see their own futures. We forget that every single person in any country, territory, administrative area, doesn't matter, believes that he or she is an expert in education only because he or she has had a personal experience in education. They have either been in education or gone through education, so they believe that they're the ones who know most about education. What do we need to do within the framework of implementology? We need to tell these people that actually what you bring from the past needs to be served for the purposes of tomorrow. Speaking about tomorrow, what's the education of tomorrow going to be like? We have had many revolutions. We have had human revolution, we have had cognitive agricultural revolution, cognitive revolution. We have had at least 3 industrial revolutions. We've had the steam engine, we've had electricity and mass production, and the most recent one that we have experienced ourselves is digital technologies. They claim a 4th alleged revolution is waiting us around the corner. It's the AI and robotics. And they say that AI and robotics are coming for our jobs, and that we need to prepare for this. We need to mitigate the risk of losing jobs. And then they say it's not going to be about old jobs. It's going to be about low-skilled jobs. Whereas those who have the 4 C's, which is about the education of tomorrow, and the 4 C's stand for creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication, are going to thrive. Not only survive, but thrive. And this will require a major paradigm shift in education. And this is where we need to pause and think. Is this going to be a major paradigm shift? Or is this going to be a minor shift within the bigger paradigm? Do we really have to forget the past, the left bank of the river, where we have huge bodies of knowledge created? And shall we focus on the soft skills? Because the 4 C's are also called soft skills. Do we really live in a time when, just like hardware and software, the social construct, the social and societal machine cannot work without the software, the soft skills? What we need to do here is to pause and to think. Do we discard memory-based knowledge, the creation of memory-based knowledge, the transfer of memory-based knowledge, and just bring in the 4 C's? Or do we need to find the very finely tuned balance between the two? Before coming here, I saw an article by Chernigovskaya, and maybe many know her, even though she is said to be a pop scientist. What she said was, our brain is just like a muscle. We may all be born Mozarts, but we do not necessarily have to become Mozart. So if we go for the soft skills only, what is it we're going to be thinking creatively about? What is it we're going to communicate about? What is it that we're going to critically evaluate? And what is it that we're going to process in a team if we discard all memory-based knowledge? I'm not saying that we should not consider a change in the methodology of teaching. This is exactly what we should do, and this is exactly where we come back to the point of implementation. This is where we need to think about active and operating networks. Networks of cells, no matter where they are, high up in the mountains, in remote rural areas, on the border, or downtown Yerevan. Because the system will thrive when every single cell within the system operates and delivers, because it implements the visions of the future. So here we stand, ladies and gentlemen, on the bridge, in the midst of the two-way traffic. And we need to consider what we take and what we discard, not forgetting that the 4 C's are the old new, or the new old, that will take us to our future. Thank you.